Hello everyone, this is Slick Can Gamer. I know that it's been about a month since my last recording session, but there was a reason for that. Obviously, as I said, basically now my reviews of Friendship is Magic are basically over, and I've now caught up with everybody else. However, I decided to basically do a couple of things that I want to keep myself motivated to do something in relates to Friendship is Magic. So, as I said at the end of the last problem, and kind of something that I hinted at nearly 10 years ago during my review of All's Well That Ends Well, I basically decided, you know what? I am going to rank every episode of every season. Just a reminder, not every 200 plus episodes, because some people have already done that, and I am not going to cram that in for like an hour plus. No, what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to rank every episode of each individual season. That's essentially the step that I want to take with. So the first step, obviously, to kick off is to go to the very beginning and essentially review, basically do a countdown of every episode of Season 1. And I honestly, pretty much because throughout high school I have a tendency to re-watch a lot of the episodes when I have nothing better to do. So I think for the first 3 seasons I know the episodes like the back of my hand. So pretty much like any countdown artists that had done multiple countdowns of everything, like the Odd Talk of Flames Top 25 No More Heroes bosses, Top 13 Mad World bosses, or the Green Scorpions Top 7 No Straight Roads or Hi-Fi Rush bosses. Basically, I'm going to be ranking every single episode of Season 1 from what I think is the worst all the way to what I think is the best. Now, obviously, something to keep in mind in regards to Season 1. Obviously, with Season 1, we're just getting used to these characters, and they're still taking time to develop. We know the basics of them, and there's a lot of things that we have to cover. And plus, something else to know, it's been a decade since I reviewed every episode of Season 1 of Friendship is Magic. Just a reminder, when I initially did reviews, I reviewed all the episodes of Season 1 while I was still a freshman in high school. I was 15 years old when I started doing these reviews. And obviously, a lot of the older seasons, especially with Season 1, my opinion has changed to when I reviewed the episodes as a 15-year-old compared to what I am now as a 26-year-old. So, in regards to Season 1, I'm going to try to be more lenient with this episode as I am with later episodes. But some of these episodes aren't going to get that leniency. So, with all that out of the way, let's begin this countdown series of the Friendship is Magic episodes so we can get through this thing. So, with all that said, it's time for me to count down the top 25 My Little Pony Friendship is Magic Season 1 episodes. And I have the list right here, which I know is not professional, but let's get into it. Number 25 is Bridal Gossip. Now, I know what some of you are probably thinking. Wait, I thought initially when you reviewed the episode, you gave the episode a B. Well, this is the thing with Bridal Gossip. Obviously, hearing thoughts and opinions from other reviewers I've seen kind of helped change my outlook on some episodes. And the thing with Bridal Gossip is that the more I watched it, the more I felt uneasy about it. There was something about the episode that I wanted to but I couldn't figure out why. Then when I saw the Voice of Reason's review of the episode, and when he initially counted down his 10 worst episodes at the time when I think just the first 2 seasons were out, and he had Bridal Gossip for the longest time as the worst episode of the first 3 seasons, he basically highlighted every reason why I didn't really like the episode. And I know what you're thinking, oh, well, you're just being influenced by others' opinions, but the thing is that he basically highlighted why there was something about the episode I just didn't like. And as time went on, I started to hate the episode more and more. It was an episode that got me so angry, I actually ended up reviewing it twice. Because after I did the initial YouTube review, about a year later, I started to detest the episode that I ended up writing a text review on Google Docs back when I was doing movie reviews like the Nostalgia Critic did, and basically, it's basically the worst episode of Season 1. And for those who are wondering why it's the worst episode, I'll basically count the ways. Basically, the poison joke is nothing more than a contrived plot convenience. The animation caused basically a bunch of plot holes, most notably Twilight basically using her magic to brush her hair, but then discovering having a limp horn, so how is she able to use magic? The evil enchantress song being as loud, obnoxious, and annoying, the main six being completely unlikable to the entirety of the episode, and while I know Pinky and Twilight are basically the worst offenders of being in the unlikability scale, Applejack I say is a close third, as Fluttershy is the most likable because she's just there, Rarity comes off as a racist, and Rainbow Dash is about second best. But Twilight lost all credibility when she basically discredited the enchantresses and jokes and was easily able to buy into the lie about Sakura. And easily the worst thing about the episode is the underhandedness of the moral about saying next time not judge a book by its cover. Now, obviously I won't get into too much details because I got 24 episodes to plow through, but just for the main point, just that everybody knows why the moral is so underhanded in Bridal Gossip, is that if somebody has to tell the girls the lesson, they're not learning. So, yeah, Bridal Gossip is the worst episode of Season 1, and really a lot of my opinions on it has not changed. And like I said, I know what you're thinking. Come on, Unflip Gamer. It's been over 11 years since the episode. Haven't you gotten over it? Nope! Not at all! And like I said, even if I was trying to be more lenient that it was a Season 1 episode, this is the thing. It's still a bad episode. It was a bad episode in 2010, and it's a bad episode now. So yeah, like I said, Bridal Gossip, worst episode of Season 1. I don't really need to say anything else that has already been talked about this episode. And I know there are people out there that like it, but yeah, it's really not an enjoyable episode. And anytime I think about this episode, it's pain. We got a long way to go, so let's move on to the next one. Number 24, Owls Well That Ends Well. So you may remember in a lot of my older reviews throughout the first 3 seasons, you might recall I wasn't the biggest fan of Spike. I know, I was very subtle about it back in the day. Obviously, one of the things that I really just felt like that Spike was basically just a guy stereotype in starts of the first 3 seasons. And episodes like Owls Well That Ends Well didn't really make me like his character at all. One of the reasons why Owls Well That Ends Well is regarded as one of the worst episodes of the first season, as we get the stupid jealousy story of basically Spike getting jealous over Owlicious and basically becoming a self-centered brat for basically most of the episode. And basically, And that's basically the gist of the episode, where they go through the same thing, where Spike is basically important, and then as soon as Owlicious is introduced, he gets completely jealous where he tries to frame him because he was an attention seeker. Yeah, like I said, after Season 4, my opinion on Spike has softened up, but episodes like Owls Well That Ends Well did not really make me appreciate his character at all, and basically he was one of those characters at the time where I hated but everybody else liked. So yeah, Owls Well That Ends Well is not a good episode I did 10 years ago, and it's not a great episode now. No. I would basically consider it to be the worst in Bridal Gossip, if not for the fact that I can kind of understand the moral, and I would like to believe that Spike had learned since the episode, which was more than I could say for Bridal Gossip, which is why Owls Well That Ends Well is only number 24, but yeah, still a bad episode. Number 23, Stealing Pinky Keen. I know there have been some defenses for this episode, and yeah, part of the reason why I disliked the episode was, again, mostly because of Spike, because of how contrived everything was of his dialogue and in regard to Pinky's, Pinky sense. Now, obviously one of the main criticisms from the episode was Pinky's line of, "You don't believe because you don't understand the Twilight," as basically Twilight's trying to understand, Pinky sense, and throughout the entire episode, she tries to bring in logic to it, but it ends up really not working, where she basically proves that she's a bad scientist in the episode, and then by the end, she basically decides, "Oh, well, I'm just going to give up and believe," even it just like that. That's really, I guess really just ultimately, I think there was just more reasons for me to not like the episode. Obviously, I think probably the main contributor why I hated the episode was Spike, but I think the moral was also poorly handled, and again, I know it can be kind of used as an allegory for religion, Pinky's Pinky sense, but I didn't really think about it too much because, like I said, at the time, I thought Spike was balls-gratingly annoying. That being said, I do think the episode's still better than Bridal Gossip and Owls Well That Ends Well, is because of the one funny gag where Twilight gets constantly hurt, where a bunch of items drop on top of her, which is literally the only funny joke I could think of in the entirety of the episode. But yeah, while feeling Pinky Keen can be very divisive, it's still a pretty bad episode. Number 22, Ghostbusters. Oh boy, the episode that made me hate Snips, Snails, and for a while, Trixie. I think really in retrospective, the episode is not as awful as it is, but it's still pretty bad. I think really also because of the fact that Trixie was basically showboating, and Snips and Snails being the most balls-gratingly annoying characters at the time, and obviously made me want to rip my hair out, since basically magic was used to solve the issue for Twilight, and basically she says "Oh, I don't want to use magic to try to show off," when she could have just said it in the first place and not constantly compare herself to Trixie. And Spike also didn't make anything better, and the humor was really just not that funny. The mustache gag, I just didn't get it, and it just really wasn't all that great. And like I said, Trixie showing the first signs that she was really a awful, awful character, which was future to come and things to come. So yeah, Ghostbusters is still not a very good Ghostbusters is still bad, but at the very least, the other 3 episodes before it didn't frustrate me. But yeah, Ghostbusters is still bad. Number 21, Over a Barrel. This episode really was another thing that I initially liked, but over time I really started to hate the episode more and more, where I tried to basically bypass a lot of the stupid stuff that went on. First of all, it's another misunderstanding of two sides between the Buffalo and the Appaloosa ponies, basically vying over the land of Appaloosa, and then it only gives us future signs that the citizens of Appaloosa were all morons. And then, of course, the Sharing is Caring song. Now, I understand that the moral is that you have to learn how to share, but the Sharing Caring song sung by Pinky started to get really, really annoying for being basically repetitive, and basically at the time I thought the song was stupid, and because of how ears bleedingly grating and repetitive it was. It basically, because of this combination of the misunderstanding and how the episode tries to basically bludgeon its moral in like a jackhammer, it really was just an episode that I was not a fan of. That being said, unlike the other 4 episodes, I did get a couple of chuckles out of it, but yeah, Over a Barrel, not as bad as the others, but I still don't like it. Alright, number 19. Number 20, I almost skipped another entry. Number 20, Griffin the Brush Off. Obviously, one of the main contributors of this episode is the fact that, well, like I said, this was another one of those episodes that, while the Looney Tunes humor from Pinky was hilarious, Gilda at the time basically brought the episode down as she was so unlikable in her initial appearance. And while the moral, I admit, is pretty good, thinking about it nowadays, especially when you're in like middle school or high school, well, just a lot of mean-spiritedness out of the episode was just something that I was just not a fan of at the time. And it really just made me not like the episode that much. That being said, upon rewatches and seeing other people's perspectives on the episode, it's a little bit better, but I'd say the episode is now about average. I do think that obviously Gilda's future appearances from season 5 onward did help redeem her character a little bit. But yeah, her initial introduction episode and really just the all-around moral and just the general attitude in the episode was just unpleasant to watch. It's not as bad as some later seasons episodes, but yeah, this was one of the starting points. So yeah, Griffin the Brush Off, while not as bad as I initially reviewed it, and I'm finding it in like the mid category now. So yeah, so the first 5 episodes on the list are episodes that I declare the 5 worst episodes of the season, probably between F and D minus. Numbers 20 through 16, I probably say about between like a D and a C minus. So let's keep it going. So number 19, Stairmaster. Now, like I said, I know what some of you are thinking. In the initial review I did, yeah, let's just say the initial review of Stairmasters that I did, I was going through a lot of personal issues going on that I was basically trying to pull what the Nostalgia Critic did in his first ever commercial special after he reviewed the movie My Pet Monster, and I was trying to make things more personal to me, and obviously I was kind of attention-seeking. And I didn't really give the episode an official grade by mouth, and I said at the time that I gave the episode like a B, I think. But much like Bridal Gossip, over time, I started to like the episode less and less. Not to the point where I actually hate it, but probably about average. I think because of probably the main contributor at the time was definitely with the Cutie Mark Crusaders. And like I said, I understand that with the earlier seasons they were still trying to find their place in life, but we kind of got the idea of what the moral was going to be, but just how they basically interacted and just the way they had to try everything to make Fluttershy have a more difficult job and just doing everything under the sun when not realizing that that wasn't going to be their special talent because the audience already knew this, considering that a prior episode we saw that Apple Bloom tried everything and it didn't work, and that episode, which we're going to get to, addresses how cutie marks work. So yeah, it was just basically balls-gratingly annoying for the first half of the episode. But the episode did end up getting better by the second half because not only will we see the introduction of the cockatrice and Twilight's terrifying petrification, but we also get an Apple Bloom's Scootaloo, Scootaloo meme, basically Scootaloo being a chicken, so that was definitely funny. And we definitely got Fluttershy to basically start to come out of her character more with the introduction of the stair. And there were a couple of jokes that did get a laugh out of me, especially Sweetie Belle's bedtime song that I basically thought was going to break out like in High School Musical. So yeah, that got a couple of laughs out of me. So yeah, this was one of those episodes that started bad, but then got progressively better. Alright, number 18. Green isn't your color. I know there are people out there that like this episode, but like I said, much like Owl's Well That Ends Well and a couple other episodes later on, as I said, Spike was not my most favorite character of the episode, and he was the main contributor of why the episode basically bogged down. Now, the A-plot revolving around Fluttershy and Rarity's story of basically Fluttershy getting picked by Photo Finish over Rarity and not trying to express her feelings to her, that was the stuff that I ended up caring about. But the B-plot in regards to Twilight trying to keep Spike's secret crush on Rarity, which, by the way, this was like episode 19, I think, where we already knew about the crush, and it was just really annoying, and we know it wasn't going to happen, just dragged the episode down, and then Pinky basically trying to keep the gag going. And then by the end, Spike saying that Twilight had to apologize for revealing that secret, even though Rarity wasn't in the room. That was just one of the things that made me just not like the episode at all. But like I said, that was only the B plot. The A plot was actually interesting, and it was definitely something that was well handled. So that's why this episode's kind of more the meh range for me. I know there are people that actually like this episode, but I just think for me, I think Spike, ultimately the B plot in regards to Spike and Secret Crush for Rarity almost basically killed the momentum from this episode for me. Again, it's better than the other episodes I mentioned. That's why it's not even in the bottom 5. but I'd say it's a meh episode at best. Number 17. Alright, flame shields up, because I'm going to get a lot of hate for this. Number 17 is Sonic Rainboom. Yep, one of the first season's most popular episodes doesn't even crack the top 15. And there's a main reason for it. Mostly because there was just a couple contributing factors that really just didn't make me like about the episode. This was similar to the Stairmaster, where it was basically some things that I just didn't like. Now, positive-wise, I do like, obviously, the early joke with Fluttershy getting motivated by Rainbow Dash into cheering, and we get the classic cheering meme from Fluttershy, and Pinky Zanius was also helpful. And we also saw basically how the world in Cloudsdale worked, or with expanding on more world building and how the Pegasus matched the weather. And of course, the most standout moment in the spectacle is Rainbow Dash basically pulling off the Sonic Rainboom, which is a sight to behold, even 14 years later. It's still a sight to behold. Well, especially with her saving Rarity and the... Now, in regards to Rarity, I didn't mind her character because, like I said, this was still Season 1, and they were still trying to make us get used to these characters. As she basically, while she was trying to help out Rainbow Dash, she ultimately got ahead of herself. But, like I said, I didn't mind it. So if I didn't mind a lot of things about the episode, and there was a lot of things about it that I liked, why isn't this episode any higher? Well, two things. The major factor was the generic bully characters. Basically, the one-dimensional bullies that basically annoyed the hell out of Rainbow Dash, and basically he kept picking on her all these years later, and given what we know of what happened in later episodes, it makes me want to punch those guys in the face even more. Because it's like they are so blinded into thinking that Rainbow Dash is the worst pony in Equestria, and keep calling her Rainbow Crash, even though she basically just saved Equestria from 1,000 years of darkness from Nightmare Moon 15 episodes prior. And I guess also another thing of basically Fluttershy basically standing up. While I do give her props, the fact that she's telling this to the same bullies that also picked on her and basically forcing Rainbow Dash's confidence to get shattered did not make me like that situation at all. So yeah, it's those two main contributors that I found really annoying why I think Sonic Rainboom is a meh episode. It's not a bad episode by any means, but when I have to deal with 3 annoying generic bully characters that make the bullies from It sound like more realistic characters, then that's not really an episode that I want to enjoy even further. And I really don't care if basically they do learn their lesson after Rainbow Dash does pull off the Sonic Rainboom, which also raises another question in a later episode, because if they saw it before, why didn't they believe that she could actually pull it off in the first place? Well, like I said, they were one-dimensional bullies, and they're idiots. So yeah, like I said, I know it's a popular episode, but it's those things that just hold this episode back for me. Alright, moving on. Number 16, Look Before You Sleep. This is another one of those episodes where I basically addressed this before in a couple of episodes, mainly in my review of Flutter Brother, where my initial review, I gave the episode an A-, but as time went on, I started to like the episode a little bit less, and that it wasn't perfect. I think just because it was still the early seasons, and I was still in get off of the high of Dragonshy, and there were a couple things about that I liked about the episode. Just seeing Rarity, Applejack, and Twilight be together for a sleepover, while not the most complex story, seeing Applejack and Rarity from 2 different walks of life trying to get along with each other was definitely something that needed to be introduced to see the Western pony try to interact with the fashionista. I think it's just because I let my excitement get the best of me, and that I should have given the episode about a B- or a C+ at best. Because we know it's the generic sleepover stuff, and there's still a lot of girly elements that just don't really sit well with me. Well, because I've only been to one sleepover, and it's been nothing like that. So, and if you know where the story goes, you know where it's going to lead. But it's still an enjoyable episode, I think. And I do think it's a little underrated. But like I said, I think I just let the excitement and the high I got from Dragonshy just kind of cloud my judgment. like I said, realistically, I should have given the episode about like a B- or a C+ at best. Alright, moving on. Number 15, Swarm of the Century. This is an episode I don't really mind all that much. I mean, just actually seeing the ponies, for one thing, actually seeing more world building and seeing the introduction of the Parasprites, and then to see it devolve into a minor thing, as we see that Pinky's zaniness would be too much, that basically the rest of the main six didn't really listen to her, and she was able to save the town through the musical instruments, which I think is pretty funny. And I do like how they do start to use the Korra after the awfulness of Bridal Gossip, where basically Zikora's, you're doomed. I think really just the main problem with the episode, I think watching it now, I think my main problem with Swarm of the Century, I think it's what even Rainbow Dash says in the episode, is that it's really just boring. Like, I couldn't really find a way to make this episode funny. I don't think there was a whole lot I could really think of. I guess really just basically Rainbow Dash trying to dodge Pinky symbols was definitely kind of funny, and I know a lot of people get mad at Fluttershy for keeping the one Parasprite after Twilight tried to fix the problem about it, but I don't think she warrants that hate. Like I said, this is still a Season 1 episode, and we're still getting used to these characters, so I don't think that Fluttershy should get a lot of grief for keeping one of the Parasprites. But like I said, I just think that the main reason why I'm only putting this episode at number 15 is because I just can't really find really a lot of memorable or just any ways to try to make it funny to pass the time. Like I said, I think it's another episode that I like, but I don't know, it's just not there. Well, obviously it's better than the bottom 10, and I'm getting ahead of myself. So yeah, Swarm of the Century, it's overall just a boring episode nowadays with a couple of funny things. Alright, number 14, A Bird in the Hoof. For the longest time, this was actually one of the episodes I actually forgot about, because that's another thing with the episode that really is, I think really just the main problem with the episode is that it's really just kind of forgettable. I think really we do get the funny face gag from Rainbow Dash with the guards who are just like stone-faced for most of the episode. And we do get basically Fluttershy trying to help Princess Celestia's pet Phoenix, which basically looks like a naked bird, and Twilight's classic Freak Out also helped out a lot of the joke. And then we know the mythologies of the Phoenix, that even if it burns away, it rises up in ashes. But yeah, I just think that the main problem with the episode is that there are a couple of good nuggets in the episode, but the problem is that the episode is just really forgettable. I do think it's good for when I remember it, but like I can't put this episode in the top 10 because the episode is really just forgettable. That being said, though, I would much rather have a forgettable episode than an awful episode. Alright, number 13, The Ticketmaster. Like I said, since this was only the third episode in the series, we were getting, like I said, we were still getting used to these characters, and I just really like the dilemma that Twilight had to go through when given the opportunity to get a ticket. And just seeing everybody go through the lengths that they had to try to get Twilight to basically give her the ticket. And basically it was kind of obvious in how Twilight couldn't put two and two together, and it really also didn't help the fact that Rainbow Dash was kind of a dick by the near of the episode. But I definitely like the Benny Hill sketch with basically Pinky trying to get the crowd to get Twilight to get the tickets. And I do think that the moral is also pretty good, where basically you shouldn't feel the need to be pressured to basically bring someone along while you're leaving out the rest of your friends. I definitely think it's a great early show moral that I think kids might be able to understand, which is why I'm not really so harsh on it, and I found the Ticketmaster to be pretty good. Alright, number 12, Call of the Cutie. Now, Call of the Cutie is definitely an episode that I definitely do enjoy, because they introduced the concept of cutie marks and how they work. This was also the introduction of Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon, and basically them being the spoiled brats for the first 4 seasons until later on, but we'll get to Season 5 sooner or later. But yeah, this episode introduces the concept of cutie marks and just feeling bad for Apple Bloom of just being an absolute outsider for most of the episode when the one friend that she had in Twist ends up getting her cutie mark and she does everything under the sun to try and basically get her cutie mark, but ultimately to no avail. And the show also makes it a point that you can't use magic to get your cutie mark, it has to happen naturally. And plus, the Quinceañera theme with the introduction of Sweetie Belle and Scootaloo standing up for Apple Bloom, and then also Twilight also stepping in for them, showed that both the three Cutie Mark Crusaders were able to help each other out, and that they can help try to find each other's talent together. It definitely made a lot more sense to see Apple Bloom try a lot of things because we were getting used to see how she would try to get it. It was a lot better than the Stairmaster where they tried everything under the sun and we already knew that it was going to work. Whereas this episode, you want to see her succeed because you want to see her try everything and it ultimately doesn't pan out. So yeah, I really liked the episode and I think it's probably the least talked about episode as far as I'm concerned. Alright, number 11, the Showstoppers. I know initially when I reviewed the episode, I gave the episode a C plus when I first reviewed the episode. But I think looking back on it, I just really found the episode to be really enjoyable. Yeah, I think the main contributor why this episode doesn't crack the top 10 is because we already know that the Cutie Mark Crusaders are going to have their own talents or not any of the things that we're trying to, and we knew that it was going to be the theme for a couple of the later seasons and that the audience was just playing the waiting game. But I really like the montage that the three of them basically went through to basically show what they can do. But we basically see how they each have their own basically talents, where basically we know that Scootaloo basically likes to play on her scooter, Apple Bloom knows how to build stuff, and Sweetie Belle is a good singer. Like I said, it's those hints that basically hold the episode back from being in the top 10, which we basically got the whole idea. And I gotta admit, the Cutie Mark Crusaders theme and the actual show itself is a comedy goldmine that I just found myself basically laughing as well. There was just a lot of funny moments and a lot of things I just really liked about the episode that I just can't really hate. But like I said, the only reason why Showstoppers doesn't crack the top 10 is because since we already knew at the time what the Cutie Mark Crusaders' initial talents were, it basically was just a matter of the waiting game at the time. So now we're at the top 10. These are the episodes that I consider to be good. I'd say numbers 10 through 6 are probably between the C plus and B range at best. Alright, number 10, Applebuck Season. This is an episode I found really underrated because this is an episode where, even to this day, I struggle with a lot. And that it basically teaches the moral about what it means when you have to ask your friends for help. And I think considering that it was Applejack who had to learn that lesson and basically having to do everything on her own, and then it also basically affects her mentally, and then she realized she had to ask for help. Like I said, this is another one of those episodes that I think kids should be able to understand when they're first introduced to the show. And it's a moral that's really relevant nowadays because a lot of times we have a hard time trying to ask for help. And plus, there was just a lot of things about the episode that just made me laugh. And, honestly, this is another episode that I just found underrated that I just can't help but just really identify with it, especially nowadays. Alright, number 9, A Dog and Pony Show. This is one of the more action-based episodes that I actually like, especially with Rarity getting taken by the Diamond Dogs and the main six basically going to try to rescue her. But then we see that despite the conceived notion that Rarity was going to be the damsel in distress, Rarity was actually able to handle her own with the Diamond Dogs and basically kind of be snooty to them and kind of annoy the hell out of them. It just cracks me up to the point where they had to let the main six take her back. And also the introduction of the race of the Diamond Dogs is definitely very interesting. It was just an all-around episode, and basically this is another one of those episodes that does also have a pretty good moral where you shouldn't be so easily to be presumed that they're like a diamond in the rough, where you don't just assume that the worst is going to happen to a pony based off of them, and they can prove that they can handle themselves. It was definitely a great rarity-focused episode to show that she could actually handle herself, and she's not just a snooty fashion pony. Alright, number 8. The best night ever. I know in terms of finales, let's be real here, in terms of finales, this is not one of the best. Considering that really the only theme of the season after the defeat of Nightmare Moon was the Grand Galloping Gala, which had 2 episodes. But I still like the episode. It was one of those episodes that basically showed that no matter how bad a party sucks, as long as you're still with your friends, it's just being it was all more worth it. Seeing the main six in their dresses from an earlier episode, it was definitely fun to hear. Plus, At the Gala is still a great song. Obviously, I still like the song. Not one of my favorites, but it's definitely catchy as hell, and I really love the animations and the aspirations that the main six went through, even if ultimately it ended in disaster for, well, all of them. However, like I said, I do think that this episode is a little overhated, because I do like the moral in that no matter how bad a party gets or how badly things suck, as long as with your friends, it just makes it all the more worth it. Plus, there was just a lot of funny things about the episode. Yes, this episode was the introduction of Prince Blueblood, who was basically an asshole to Rarity, but basically seeing Fluttershy get absolutely mental when trying to get love from the animals is definitely a sight to behold. And obviously we get the meme of the Cyclops pony in terms of the animation errors. But yeah, I still like the episode. Number 7, Fall with Her Friends. This was an episode that was the first introduction of Rainbow Dash and Applejack's competitiveness. It's just really funny to seeing Ashley Ball basically argue with herself. It's just really humorous to me. But there's just a lot of fun moments where we see the two of them basically competing and trying to one-up each other. And then we also see them trying to one-up each other in the running of the leaves, with Twilight basically participating. And they basically learn not to put the competition ahead of their friendship. And it's definitely a great moral that should be learned. It's just all around a solid episode. Alright, number 6. Winter Wrap-Up. This is an episode I do enjoy. I think it is a really good episode because we see Twilight trying to integrate herself into Ponyville, and also the introduction of the Winter Wrap-Up song. And let's be honest here, we're going to be playing this song in about a few weeks when spring rolls around, because winter is finally coming to an end. And I really like how Twilight tries everything under the sun to basically try and be a part of trying to help out with clean up winter, but there's just nothing that fits. But then ultimately she realizes that she's good at organizing, seeing how disorganized the Ponyville team is because they've been constantly late, but with Twilight's organization, they're able to get winter done on time, and she's able to find her roles. Now, while I do enjoy this episode, the only reason why I'm not putting this episode in the top 5 is 2 major factors. Basically, Spike essentially making fun of Twilight as trying as hard she is, convincing her to use magic, even though the rules say that she wasn't allowed to use magic and she was able to fix it, and then Applejack snapping on her. I have made it clear when I re-reviewed the episode after the copyright episode, after I reviewed the episode the first time, I made it clear that I didn't like how Applejack talked to Twilight that way. And the fact that Spike said that, oh, the nerve, can you believe her, when he was the one that convinced her to do it, the fact that Twilight didn't say that Spike was the one that caused her to do it, and that she said that she was trying, and that Applejack wasn't the slightest bit understanding, was really aggravating to me. And while that was only 2 minutes at most compared to either an entire act or an entire episode, it was just one of those moments that made me so mad that I really, and like I said, this was back when I legitimately hated Spike, and it was one of those moments where I basically wanted to rip the scales off of his back, because he was basically making fun of her and also encouraging her to do this, and then not owning up to the fact that he was the one that caused her to do it. But despite those gripes, I do think that Winter Wrap-Up is still a solid episode, and Winter Wrap-Up is still a catchy as hell song. Number 5, Suited for Success. I really do enjoy this episode, as we do get to see in Rarity's fashion side and how well she thinks about her friends' dresses, but wants to meet the expectations of her friends and trying to meet what they want, only for them to have some of the most hilarious dresses ever made. And of course her over-inflection after she basically becomes a laughing stock. Just her classic breakdown the robe is just basically hilarious. But of course, the climax of the episode where she gets to give the initial dresses that she made for her friends. Obviously, the transitions, then the dresses and the animation are absolutely jaw-dropping. It is a very solid episode where we shouldn't pressure our friends to do exactly what we would want them to do, but do what makes them happy. And on top of that, Art of the Dress is another catchy song that I just really can't help but smile. Alright, number 4, The Elements of Harmony / Friendship is Magic, the pilot episode. Obviously, while this episode obviously is a great introduction to the entire show, and it works so well, because it introduces us to all the main essential characters, know what the basic personality traits are like, but then also understanding in the world building of Equestria as well as the build-up of Nightmare Moon, and how they're each put to the test. As when Nightmare Moon does return, and then Twilight having to rely on the new ponies that she made, coming from Camelot to Ponyville to make friends, and then basically learning over the course of the journey that each of the friends that she made have a part of the element that they have. Applejack with her honesty, Fluttershy with her kindness, Pinkie Pie with her laughter, Rarity with her generosity, Rainbow Dash with her loyalty, and Twilight being the magic, as well as the introduction of the Elements of Harmony, and the very first "Taste the Rainbow, motherfucker" moment. And it basically is a great, solid episode, and it's really going to be something that you're going to enjoy, and for early 2010 for the first season, the animation is absolutely stunning. Not as stunning as some later seasons, but it's definitely a great introduction. It's a solid series opener that helps build up the world around you, know who the basic character traits of the initial characters, the MacGuffins, and just knowing how valuable friendship can be. And that's why I think it is a solid episode. Number 3, Dragonshy. I think like many people have said, this was the episode that I think made me a brony. I think while Griffin the Brush-Off and Ghostbusters made me start to waver a little bit, Dragonshy was what got me hooked. Because this was the very first action-based episode, as we see it take more of an action approach, where the main 6 have to go up a mountain to try to tame a dragon and basically get it to leave Ponyville. And seeing Fluttershy trying to basically being scared of dragons and why it's so frightening to her. We also see a lot of funny, humorous moments, and also Pinkie being quirky. And it all culminates to basically Fluttershy standing up to the dragon and standing up for her friends, and shows how much she cares about them. Plus, there are basically a couple bits of humorous moments there. Yeah, there are a couple moments where Rainbow Dash does come up as a little bit of a bitch towards Fluttershy, but like I said, this was still the earlier seasons, and we were still getting used to these characters, so it made sense, but it was still ultimately a hook because you want to see the main 6 succeed, but you want to see Fluttershy conquer her fears and stick up for herself, and when her friends are on the line, she does just that. And the action was very exciting as well. There's just a lot of great things about this episode. Alright, number 2, Party of One. This is an episode that is just a comedy goldmine. Just seeing Pinkie just being bouncy and bubbly for basically throwing a party for Gummy, and then just having a great time about it. But we see that when Pinkie tries to figure out what her friends are doing when they're being secretive, she's not as dumb as she appears to be, and she actually becomes very persistent to them, where basically it becomes more hilarious trying to keep up with her. And it basically all culminates to the fact where she just assumes that her friends don't want to be her friends anymore, plus her facial reaction initially is funny. And then we get the introduction of Pinkamena Diane Pie, where basically she turns into a mindfuck moment where basically she's becoming more, crazy. But this episode also basically teaches a solid moral where essentially you shouldn't doubt your friends, and you can't just assume the absolute worst. and that essentially if you try to talk out with your friends and not instantly jump to conclusions, you will still be able to maintain those friendships. Now, in spite of that great episode is, there's still one episode I like more, and I think you know what it is. And the number one best episode of Season 1 of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic is The Cutie Mark Chronicles. I really love this episode, mostly because it gives us the backstories of the main six, how they each got their cutie marks, what they all went through, and essentially how they all earned them. And on top of that, we essentially learn they are all connected with one another. With Applejack actually moving away from the farm, trying to live in Manhattan with her aunt and Uncle Orange, and then realizing that home isn't what it seems to be, and then seeing a Rainbow to lead back in their home, realizes that she needs to be on the farm, seeing Fluttershy actually trying to be defended by Rainbow Dash, and then actually discovering, her talent of falling off and finding the animals, she basically then discovers her kindness with her interaction with animals. Rarity basically discovering her love for fashion and trying to find gems on a rock, with her magic basically dragging her over cliffs and cliffs to find a rock. Twilight essentially trying to get into Princess Celestia's magic school and then being able to use her magic to open the egg that she got, which was Spike, and then becoming Princess Celestia's pupil. Seeing Pinky actually being born on a rock farm, and then seeing a rainbow that essentially basically causes her to get her party inspiration to make her family happy, and it ends up working out for her. And then Rainbow Dash basically being so fast and loving to win, and being able to pull off the Sonic Rainbow to shove it into the bullies' faces to defend Fluttershy's honor, basically showing that she can make the impossible happen. And of course, the main thing that we know, the Sonic Rainbow that she made, basically culminated with all six stories connecting with each other, and that the six were meant to be as friends from the very beginning. There was really nothing about the episode I can complain about because I was so intrigued by it. With the other episodes, there's one or two nitpicks, but this is a solid episode, and that is why I think The Cutie Mark Chronicles is my favorite episode of Season 1. Alright, so I hope you liked my little experiment, because obviously I'm going to keep going with all the future seasons, and hopefully by the time I finish up with Season 9, I'm going to count down my personal favorite episodes and which episodes I hate the most, but we got another 8 seasons to go. So I'm Flickcam Gamer, and next time I'm going to be ranking every single episode from worst to best of Season 2. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.